In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a more elaborate font design with our Rockstar design here. And what makes this more elaborate and more complicated is all of the intersecting stones. And this is one area where a lot of software doesn't get it right. And it's not really critical on that particular piece of software. It just is what it is. And so what's more important is to get some type of result and then have certain tools to edit that result and get the result that we're looking for. So you can see here in our letter K where the top loop comes back over itself, and you can see that that intersection is perfect right there. And then down here we have the tail of the K intersecting our S of star, and again that intersection is perfect. Again, we have the bottom loop of S coming back over itself. Again, that intersection perfect. And then finally we have the crossing of the T, and that intersection is perfect as well. Those are things that I really clue in on and look at when I'm creating a design. And if you look at a lot of rhinestone designs, especially with more elaborate fonts like this, you're going to see that those intersections usually aren't pretty, aren't as good as they could be, and that's because it takes extra time to get those to be perfect. And we're going to show you how it's fairly easy to do using EasyStone to make those necessary edits that we want to make. If we just take it step by step, we're going to show you exactly how we do it to get that perfect, what we consider that perfect result. So let me go ahead and let's just type out rock. And then we're going to use a font called Scriptina. It's a popular font. I used a lot of different things. We're going to make a duplicate of rock, and we're going to come in here and just type in star. Now, you can see here that the T is quite a ways away from the S, and the A and the R just sticking way out here. So what we're going to do is select that, come into our Shape Edit tool here in Corel Draw, and see those little nodes there? We're going to select those three, and then use our arrow keys to position that T right where we want it. And then we're going to click off, and now you see these two nodes. We're going to select those two and move those over. Really simple little edit there. And then we're just going to position star kind of overlapping the K wherever we want it. Now that we have our text basically laid out the way we want it, we're going to select the whole design and change its size. And let's just say, oh, I don't know, let's go 8 inches wide for this example. Alright, now let's just hop over to another software program. Now this is Hotfix Era, and I like this program for a lot of things, and a lot of things I don't like the program. But what I wanted to show you was the default result from Hotfix. So you can see, especially here with our letter K, really problematic where all those intersections are coming into play. It really gets confused. Where the K and the S are overlapping. You can see there's some work there to be done. You can see here where that intersection of the T, again, some work that would need to be done. So definitely problematic, and it's not really a dig on the software. It's just understanding there are limitations to what a computer can compute. And so what we have to do is take those default results and modify them. To me, that's one area where Hotfix is somewhat limiting, is the edits and how easy the editing is for these particular situations. So we'll pop back over here to Corel Draw and take a look at how we would do this using EasyStone and Corel Draw. So the first thing we're going to do is grab a rock here, come to the font tab, and convert to single line font. And then we're going to do the exact same thing for star, convert to single line font. Now you can see that this area right here is problematic, just as it was in Hotfix. Okay, but we're going to show you how we can take care of that. And likewise, remember that tail of the K and the S in Hotfix, almost an identical result here in Corel Draw. Okay, and likewise, that intersection of the T, problematic, right? So we're going to show you how we're going to fix all of those things. So what we're going to do here is select our entire design. Now, right now, these stones are applied to a path. You can see that path right there. So what we're going to do is get rid of the paths. We don't need those. So we're going to come to the Stone tab and hit Delete Stone Paths. Now, if we just take each part of the design step by step, you'll see that it's fairly easy to edit this design and get the result we want. So let's just start with our letter R here. The only problem with R is right here. These two stones are touching. So a couple basic things here in Corel Draw. If we are in our pick tool here and we select one stone, hold the Shift key and select the other stones. Okay, that's one way to do it. We could just marquee select because it's fairly easy to select those stones. In Corel Draw X6, which I'm using, we have a freehand pick tool, and we just could draw out a little path around those stones and pick them up that way. So lots of different ways to isolate those stones. So I'm just going to use my freehand pick tool and then come in here and just reposition. Right? And now you can see our R is just fine. Now, for our C, I don't really like this C. It almost looks like an E. So I'm going to make a choice as the designer to modify this. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to shuffle a couple of stones around and get this C looking like I want it to look. That's just a personal preference. I think that looks more like a C than what we had. Okay, and the distance between the C and the K, I don't like that distance. So again, I'd probably use my freehand pick tool. Once you get used to it, it's a really fun tool. And then I'll just use my arrow keys to fine tune the exact placement of that letter C. Now, the O here for this particular font is ugly, and you can see the result is not really what we would want either, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch this out. So what we're going to do here is use this tool right here, the 3-point ellipse tool. You don't use it a lot, but in certain situations, it's actually quite useful. So what we're going to do is select that, and I'm just going to come in here and see how I'm creating a line at an angle. So I click, drag, pull. Okay, so you can see how I've kind of created that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that freehand pick tool and I'm coming in and swoop in some stones and hit delete. And then I'm going to swoop in and get the rest of them and hit delete. Okay, so that took care of that. And now I have this oval shape. My O looks a lot better. And I'm going to just kind of stand back, take a look at it. I think maybe it needs to be a little bit smaller. Alright, let's try that. So we're going to come here to the Stone tab and choose Add Stones and see if we like that. So you can see how much bigger it is than our letter C. And I wanted to show you this deliberately to show you how easy it is to make an edit. So this O is too big. So we're going to just drag it down. Okay, get it more in size to what we want. Now you can see how these stones are so close together? That's okay, because all we do is to hit Add Stones again, and it recalculates, and there we go. So now when we step back, yes, that O is nicely proportioned to the rest of the lettering. I'm good with that. Now, what do we do here with the letter K? Well, the first thing we want to do is fix a couple of things. Now, when you're working with fonts, it's really up to you as the designer how closely you want to represent the exact font. So in my case, I want to delete some problem areas. Okay, now let's take a look at where this top loop is coming and making that intersection right there. That's where the problem is. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this stone, position it right where I want it. Okay, so now that stone is kind of locked in where I want it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete a stone. Now we have this gap, and we need to fill in the gap. So what do we do? So here's what we do. We grab our 3-point curve tool, and I'm just going to come in here, using these stones as a guide, create a new path. And how far I go is really up to you. You'll get a feel for it once you actually start using these tools, how far to go. So we're going to go that far, reshuffle the space between all of these stones along that path. So come to the Editing tab, hit Respace, and watch that happen. So see how all those stones have been reshuffled? And when you sit back and look at the design, even though we didn't shuffle the spacing between all of the stones, you can see as you sit back and look at it, it looks pretty similar. It looks pretty consistent all the way through the design. And that's really what we're after. Alright, so now we have the same situation on the bottom half of the K here. So what we're going to do is grab a 3-point curve tool. Step 1, hit respace, and watch all these intersections. You've got lots of overlapping stones here, so let's see what the initial results from respace is. And you can see it did clear that up, but you can also see that there's a bit of a gap here. There's some spacing issues because now the bottom half of the K, the stones look farther apart than the top half. So what we'll do is grab one, duplicate it, select our path again, and hit respace again. Okay, now that looks more consistent, but we do have this overlapping stone. We'll go ahead and dispose of that. Alright, so now the next thing we need to do is the tail of the K. Okay, and where you can see it's overlapping here, kind of like the R was earlier. So in this scenario, what I'm going to do is go ahead and select each one of these stones. I'm just selecting them one by one. Okay, and then I'm just going to manually position them how I want them to intersect with that stone right there. Okay, no software program is going to do that for us. We have to make those choices ourselves, and you'll get a much more exact result. So now we have this loop of the K that we need to deal with, and I'm just going to manually place a stone, and then the rest of this I'm going to have to just fix on my own. So we'll just kind of position this top loop right here. We'll go ahead and position that where we need to be. And then we'll just kind of shuffle these stones around. You want to get the spacing pretty good. The more you do this, the more you work with rhinestone designs here in Corel Draw, the easier it's going to be for you to shuffle stones around and get a really nice result. So yes, I had to touch every one of those stones, and typically we don't like to touch any more stones than we absolutely must, but the result is going to be a nice, perfect result. So it's worth, in my mind, it's worth the time. So what we're going to do here, this is where I'm using a little bit of artistry because the original font did not come cross over like that, but I think that makes for a really good looking K there to have it look like that. Okay, so now that takes care of that problem that we had with the letter K. It really wasn't that much work, so pretty simple to do. Now the next thing to do is take a look at this intersection with the letter S. Now this could be problematic, so let's go ahead and delete the overlapping stone that we don't want. And now what we're going to do is we're going to say this stone right here, let's just color it. That's what I call an anchor stone. So we can't move that. So all these other stones have to kind of move around that. So what I'm going to do, grab that 3-point curve tool again, and we're just going to draw out a path for these stones to follow. Now you see this little dip? I want to show you that. See that little dip right there in the path? Let's see what happens with the stones if we just leave that dip in there. So we have our path selected, so I'm going to hit respace, and we're going to watch that. And you can see there is a little dip there, but it's not that serious. Now you can see the spacing of these stones is a bit much. So let's go ahead and select our path again and hit respace again until we get that spacing like we want. And I think that's pretty good. And I might just move a couple of stones to kind of eliminate that dip. So you can see that top part of the S is the way we want it to be. Now the bottom part we're going to also have to make some changes to. So let's set this stone like we want to, and then what we're going to have to do is draw a new path and shuffle all these stones around for the bottom part. So again, grab our 3-point curve tool, and we're going to just start drawing a path that we can live with. So there's that first segment, and then we're going to connect to the first segment, and let's come down here, something like that, and then we're going to come over here, something like that. And again, How far do we go? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it all the way down to this point right here. So we're going to tell it to shuffle all these stones all the way around up to that point there. So again, let's hit respace, see what we get. Shuffled all those stones around, and I think that looks good. Now you can see right here we have a problem with the intersection, but that's okay. We're going to delete that, and we're going to delete that. And again, we're going to pick this stone up, put it where we want it, and now we're going to fix these stones going this direction. So grab that 3-point curve tool from center of stone, and we'll come in here, and then maybe what I'll do is I'll bring it all the way down to here. Okay? Whatever you want to do, you'll get the hang of it, of what you should and shouldn't do, and how far you need to go to get those stones to respace like you want them. So now we'll select that path and hit that respace tool, and there you have it. So you can see now that intersection is going to be a nice looking intersection. Again, we're going to use a little artist interpretation, continue that across, and now you can see how good that intersection looks. So for our letter T, we're going to do kind of the same thing. And again, probably what I'm going to do is use a little bit of artist interpretation there. And let's go ahead and redo our T here. So we come in here, make a path that we can position those stones on. And you could take this as far as you want it, as far as getting it perfect, but we'll go ahead and hit respace. And now you can see we have nice, perfect spacing. And that's really what we're looking for, nice, perfect spacing. We're going to select all these stones, shift select this stone. The last stone that you pick, that kind of becomes your anchor. So when we hit T for Tom, or top, you can see what it does. It just lines all those stones up to the top, and then to space these horizontally, shift P. P is in Paul. And now you can see that the spacing between each stone going horizontally is perfect. And then what I would do is again just come over here and grab a couple. I'm just manually duplicating those stones. Maybe I'll only do 2 on the back side there. Okay? So now that takes care of that. Now what I decided to do where the T was looping through the A, I just decided to delete that part of the tail. So we didn't have that issue. You know, it's up to you. You're the designer, what you want to do there. So for the letter A here, you can see it's not the spacing, those stones are touching, it's not perfect. So what we'll do here is come in here and we'll make a couple of selections, draw that 3-point curve, hit the respace function, shuffle those stones around. Now you can see these stones are really tight. So we'll go ahead and delete a stone, see if that gives us enough extra spacing. We'll hit respace again. And nope, I think I'm actually going to delete one more. There we go. That's what we want, just like that. Okay? And then probably we'll just delete that stone. And I'll tell you what, we'll probably make a small change here. Again, I'm just being nitpicky. I think that looks a little bit better. Alright, now for the letter R, same thing. We're going to add a stone to the top here. And I'm going to grab my 3-point curve tool, draw out a new path, and hit that respace feature. Spacing is a little bit too loose, so we'll grab our path again and hit respace, and then we'll probably just delete that stone. And I'll just position this down just a little bit. So we'll do something like that. Okay? And then what I'll do is I'll grab my freehand pick tool here in Corel Draw X6, and I'm just going to slide my A over a little bit because I think that'll look a little bit better. Alright, so there we have our finished product. So now what we're going to do is grab our entire design, come to the stone tab and delete those stone paths, and then we'll select our entire design. We'll hit that rename and fill, to change all back to that same stone color. And then finally, we'll come to the miscellaneous tab and choose that add weed box. And now you can see that we have really nice intersections at all those points that we talked about at the beginning. So yes, it does take a little bit more work for us, but we have a more perfect result. So if you don't necessarily care about such a perfect result, you can get a similar result without all that extra work. But it's nice to know that we have the tools in EasyStone to make these small changes to get a really nice end result. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, we'll have some other demonstrations on using this tool and using it different ways. That convert to single line font tool is something that you're going to use probably a fair bit in your rhinestone designs. So I hope you enjoy this one. Thanks for watching.